First impressions, what was yours?
So I'm sitting here with Tom Hutley of YouTube fame.
Woo!
Going to ask him a few questions for see what he's been up to. So, how long have you been a cab driver, Tom?
4.5 years.
4.5 years. So, what made you decide to do the knowledge?
So I'd been through university because that was just the expected path that you go and do. It's just go to college, go to uni, and I just got swept up in the academic current. And then you throw the mortise board in the air when you graduate from university. It came down, hits the floor, and then I'm like, now what? You just lost. Then I went on this wild goose chase of starting a business and then trying to work within the field that I studied, which quite ironically, film and TV productions. That's where my expertise for YouTube came from finally. And I worked in graduate jobs. I was selling training packages to HR managers, wearing a suit. I'm like, how did this actually happen? Where did it all go wrong? And throughout all of these different jobs I was hopping between, one of my mates that I went to uni with, his dad was ex-Met. And I've recently found out that he'd done this thing called the knowledge and became a Cabby. And the whole process kind of intrigued me. He told me about these things called blue books. And I thought that sounds kind of, the idea of like learning a book and then you learn London, I thought that's kind of really cool. I want to grab these books because even if I don't become a Cabby, I've, learn a bit about London or something. And that's always got to be good, right? So I did that and I didn't quite action it though. I moved back home with my parents for a bit and then I decided, right, that was kind of my rock bottom. I was back at the very first job I had when I was 15, been to uni and that, all my uni debt, and I'm like, what can I do? And I thought, well, just done these blue books, got myself into it, and then as I learned more and more about London, I thought, well, actually, the idea of being a cabbie sounds quite good. I can work myself, I can earn me money or whatever, and I just got really sucked into the process, and here I am now, really, after doing all of that.
So how long did it take you to do the knowledge?
So I got through it in just under 3 years. I think if I'd have sorted out my sort of scheduling in the beginning, doing my blue books and that, because I was a bit ad hoc, I could have maybe done it a bit quicker. Once I sort of got onto appearances, then I was in. Like that was my game. There was nothing else in life that existed other than the knowledge. I absolutely loved all of that.
So that was quite quick because a lot of people still take 4.5 years to do it.
There's people coming out now that from like COVID and that, they got into it during COVID and they've got their badges now, so they've been getting out in like 2 years. So I think it's definitely still down to the amount of study you put in. What they've changed at the carriage office so you can't get redlined, I think is a good idea now because it just means you get stuck on a stage rather than going back, which I think was always a brutal thing. Wouldn't have made any difference to sort of my knowledge journey, but yeah, thoroughly loved it, thoroughly enjoyed it, and I think it's best thing I've ever done.
So was you born in London or was you born outside of London?
I have no connection with London whatsoever. I don't have any family here. I wasn't born here. I was born in Essex and grew up in Essex. So there's, my old man somehow speaks a bit of Cockney, like rhyming slang that I picked up off of him, but he's not even from London. It was only because his dad, my granddad, then came to London to do work, so he weren't even from London. So he picked up on all the building sites and things like that, and that's kind of cascaded down. But no, absolutely nothing. And that's kind of what I love about the knowledge. It's like doing that and then now having the love of London from doing the knowledge and then going on through various tour guiding courses. I feel very much part of London now from driving the cab and doing all that really, but zero connection whatsoever.
So tour guiding courses, you've done the Company of Hackney Carriage Drivers taxi guide course.
Yep.
Did you find that worthwhile? Yeah,
definitely. So for multiple reasons. So firstly, I didn't really realise just how much there was to London. Like that, doing that tour guiding course after doing the knowledge, like I had the first for learning more stuff, obviously from doing the knowledge, but then doing that, you start looking at like history everywhere. And it's like, since doing that course, it's almost been like when you pull a yarn or thread on your shirt, you start pulling it and more shit just keeps coming and coming. And you're like, and it is endless in London. So then I've done that and then I went and done the London Borough of Camden guiding course. And it's just a great thing just to kind of, you're out in it every day driving. So you can always pick up something, you can always learn something, look at, but there's connections to make every day when you come out in the cab. It's wonderful.
So you became a London cab driver and then you started a YouTube channel. What was the impetus to start the YouTube channel?
I think I always wanted to do something on YouTube, like before I even sort of done became a cabbie, right? And I put it off for ages because I got my badge in like end of 2017. And I was like, yeah, I'll get around to doing it one day, whatever. And it was only one of the things I used to always see was, some of you remember that you've got the Google HQ at the end of the King's Cross rank up near Evans Cycles, and it used to be like the YouTube campus or whatever it was called, and there's this big screen in the window of all the different YouTube creators. And what kind of got me thinking about it was that I used to watch so many different people on YouTube, like electricians, plumbers, like pilots, all different walks of life, and I'm like, there's not like a cabbie on there, there's not a London cabbie. So I always sort of had that in the back of my mind. I was like, yeah, I'll get around to doing that one day, and you'd see the YouTube studio, whatever. Well, 2020 lockdown hit, and I thought, well, this is the greatest opportunity. If I can't do it now, if I can't just get in the back of my cab like we're doing now and just make some videos, that's the easiest thing to do, right? And I just done it, sat on my drive. You look at my very first videos was me doing that, just telling a bit about the knowledge, telling a bit about driving a cab. And then I had this kind of epiphany. Once I started doing this, I was like, well, it's great telling people about it, but why don't I actually demonstrate it? Why don't I actually show what it's like? And it just evolved from there. It just keeps growing and growing, and just a new idea will pop up. You add that in, and someone will say, oh, maybe you should do this. And now I just use it as like a really good platform. I think it's so important to share because it's busted so many people's myths of like what being a cabbie is like, or what getting in a cab is like. I love the comments that come through and say, look, I've never taken a cab in London before, but your videos have made it more accessible, you know, or like I understand a bit more about a black cab driver now, like what goes into it. And, you know, I'm not every cabbie. I know some drivers aren't as enthusiastic about this, or, you know, they just like to come up and just do their hours and come to work. That's fine. But I enjoyed the knowledge so much. I just didn't want that to end, because I was like an athlete on the knowledge, and I think we all are. You know, that's a huge crowning glory when we wear our badges. That's our gold medal as cabbies, and I didn't want that to end. I didn't just want to become a cab driver. I wanted to share that with people, because it was kind of hard, that transition to just become just a cab driver. So I thought, right, get on YouTube. We've got to sort this out, basically.
So I was listening to you so much.
No, sorry, yeah. That's the bit I'm passionate about.
Your enthusiasm's like it's like electrifying, your enthusiasm.
Oh, cheers, mate. Thanks.
You're like I was with like fucking 20 years ago.
Well, it kind of dies. Yeah, I don't know. Like sometimes it ain't. I mean, like the initial enthusiasm of driving a cab's definitely like the honeymoon period's gone, you know, and it's not like, oh, I can come out 7 days a week, like no chance. But you always get like a bit of an angle from it, and like, you know, maybe because I haven't gone to work yet today, maybe by the end of today's shift I might be a bit, you know, it does wear you down at times, and it's not all sunshine and roses. But for the most part, I just wanted to be able to share like what goes into it, because that's what I'm so proud of, like, you know, and what more people to know about. You know, when Americans get in the cab, they've never heard of the knowledge. I'm like, we're the only cab service in the world that doesn't rip you off. Like, it's crazy.
So the YouTube channel, what plans have you got for the future of you as a taxi driver, your YouTube channel, and the whole thing?
So initially it was like aimed at knowledge students. I wanted to get more people on the knowledge, like not like, oh, you must go and do this, just like, oh, if you're looking at doing the knowledge, this is it. I wouldn't want to ram it down everyone's throat and say, look, this is what you need to do. So that was the first iteration. Then it was like, look, this is my work as a London cabbie. This is kind of what it looks like, averagely to me. This is my expenses and stuff like that, to educate and inform of it. What I've really sort of understood now is that now that the YouTube channel's got a bit bigger, I still want to do some of those videos because they're quite important to share, but what will be really quite powerful with it is to really highlight the issues that face the trade, because it's a big platform. And then all of a sudden, like people build up this credibility with me and going, right, yeah, I rate what Tom says. I want to be able to show stuff like, you know, what low traffic neighbourhoods are doing to our livelihoods, what this electric infrastructure that's coming through is doing to us. But that's probably my biggest challenge as well, because I can just make a video saying low traffic neighbourhoods bad. Well, why is it bad? I need to be able to somehow make a video, craft it in a way that the average person can understand. Because I'm like taking, say, a 9-hour shift and cramming it into 30 minutes, people don't feel like how bad it is when you're stuck in the cab with a passenger and you're still in traffic and, you know, an hour's gone by, and it's embarrassing. So I really want to be able to use it as a platform for cabbies, you know, for what's going on you know, in London specifically, just how bad some of these things get. So it's got to be used right. I don't want to just put stuff out there that's like, you know, the boy who cried wolf or whatever. I want to be able to demonstrate it in a way that people can understand it, so then they can share with their friends and go, God, it's really bad for cabbies. We need to put some more provisions in for this, really.
So you drive an electric cab, an LEVC TXE.
Yep.
What do you think of it? I see your video where you drove a TX4
Yep.
with Mark Munro.
Yeah.
How does that compare, the TXE, compared to the TX4?
In some ways, I'm kind of sad. Like when you look at the whole grand scheme of it, because when I'd done the knowledge and got out, I was like, right, perfect business sense, a bit like buying off a house versus renting a house, is buy a TX4. It all makes the same money. They've all got the same meter attached to them. So if you buy an old one and clean it up, or whether it's a brand new one, they both make the same money. So my plan was buy a TX4, pay it off, and then you're freehold. You can, everyone knows this is the best business sense. Yeah, you got to pay out for repairs, things like that. But then, of course, when Sadiq Khan brought in the 12-year rule and, you know, limited obviously all the age the diesel was down, well, you know, he's moved the goalpost. If I was then to go buy a TX4, he's not to say he's going to move them again. So it's kind of annoying that with a TXE, I will never be freehold, because who would want to run one of those out of warranty? That is the biggest issue with these. So I'm always thinking about it. I'm like, God, like when I'm done with that cab, like once the warranty's up, do I go back to a TX4? I quite like the TX4. I think they're very iconic. There's just something about them. They are very well built. They're very robust. Whereas the TXE in some places can feel a bit flimsy. But it's a wonderful vehicle to drive. I love the fact that it just makes no noise. Like the first thing when I came back into driving a TX4, the video I done with Mark Monroe, was that I wanted to turn down the engine. Like the engine was too loud. Like normally when someone gets in, I turn my radio down and then I say, oh, where do you want to go? On the TX4, I'm like, this engine's too loud. How do I turn it down, you know? But I suppose just whatever you get used to. So we just need more options, I think. It's just...
Do you think the infrastructure's there for electric vehicles at the moment?
It needs to be. There needs to be more chargers on the street, and they need to be a lot faster. I mean, these cabs can take the Tesla supercharging plugs, but it's limited to 50 kilowatt an hour, which is still like 45 minutes to charge. If you can do it in like 10 minutes, that's wicked, because 10 minutes, you just like quick coffee. You wouldn't need to get that many more chargers. So long as they do, as long as they're taxi-only chargers with the card system they want introduced, so that people like Ubers and private hire drivers can't jump on the chargers, then we wouldn't have a problem, because drivers would get through it quicker. Think about it. If you could charge a cab in 10 minutes, then you could get 4 cabs through a charge in the time it takes currently. So you wouldn't need that many more chargers, I would think, because there'll be more cabbies being able to charge up quicker. So as long as it speeds up and you get a few more of them through, then that might sort the infrastructure out. And of course, longer life batteries. I haven't got an infrastructure of charging at home, and I'm sure many cabbies don't. And that's the biggest concern I have, is that if they go fully electric, as it is currently, I would not be able to do the job.
Are you glad you did the knowledge and became a London cab driver?
Yeah, 100%. Just for like a lot of reasons. So firstly, I feel like since doing it, like my capacity of like being able to go and learn new things, or just having a curiosity into things. I think curiosity really is a habit rather than something that you have, or that, you know, is like a personality trait. So it's made me a lot more curious towards life, towards history, to whatever. And I think that it's like a stepping stone for whatever I may then want to do. And I love, and I fully support any other cabbies that do other stuff alongside driving a cab. Again, it's not for everyone. Some people just enjoy just driving a cab, whatever. But yeah, thoroughly enjoyed that. I love being able to see London through that lens. Whenever I go to other foreign cities, I'm always trying to sort of map it out in that same way. Like I went to Rome just before the lockdown and going around on a scooter, and it was like doing my knowledge of Rome. We're just driving around, girlfriend on the back, and we're just like, I didn't take any maps or whatever. I just went for a drive as you used to do when you did the knowledge on your bike in London, and you just explore it for what it is. I absolutely love that. Yeah.
Done the tour guiding course.
Yep.
You've done a Camden course. Are you doing many tours in the cab?
I've put them on the side for now, because just trying to do the YouTube stuff, that's kind of my main focus and priority. I kind of was just like willy-nilly taking tours, and then my attention was focused everywhere in terms of driving a cab and doing tours and trying to do the YouTube. So I want to try and get the YouTube kind of under some sort of sustainable sort of idea, but I do want to come back to the tours because I've got some sort of ideas in terms of, I was just doing sort of generic run-of-the-mill, here's London, kind of the highlights of London sort of tours, which towards the end I was just a bit, well, I want to do something a bit more kind of specialist, really, more unique, like more under the surface a bit more. So yeah, I'll come back to them at some point. That's the great point.
So personally, I think your YouTube channel does a lot to promote the cab trade. Do you think the cab trade does enough to promote itself?
I don't know, I suppose there's lots of different avenues and ways in. I think what mine's kind of done is that it's not like, how can I explain it? I suppose it's almost, I am like technically a YouTuber, right? I don't like the idea of it. I'm not doing this for like fame. It's just like I happen to know a lot about cab driving. I drive a cab. I have an enthusiasm for London. I used to do sales, so it kind of ties all those things together. And I've done media as well, so it ties all these things together that I'm quite passionate about. And then I can promote it in some sort of way. And then it just sort of happens to sort of like help the benefit of the cab trade out as well. So I think so long as you get people that are quite like, you know, enthusiastic about some sort of angle within the cab trade, then it kind of sells itself. I think maybe where some people might go wrong is kind of going, right, we're cab trade and this is exactly why. I think if you just invite people into the conversation, or maybe even having stories around cab drivers. So, I mean, one of my videos I buddied up with Mark Monroe as a cab driver. Now his stuff, you might think, well, he's competition, you know, why would you want to sort of body him up for that? Well, no, we're all cab drivers. We're all competition anyway. But he's got like a completely different style. His is more kind of TV, a lot more slower, more informative, a lot more history, whereas mine's kind of like bang, 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 entertainment. This is a bit about how my life and job works. So I've got so much love and respect for anyone who wants to do any form of like, whether it's, you know, talking and interviewing, you know, legends of the cab trade. I was thinking about maybe setting up a website of like Cabby profiles. And then it's just a way of what I've kind of done on YouTube. It's a way of people being able to get to know me. It's kind of like a personal insight into what I do. And then they kind of know my story. But I think there's so many other cabbies out there that need to do that I'm just one driver. But there's so many more people that I think will really benefit from doing something like this in some capacity. It doesn't have to be that way. It could be any way. And I'll very happily promote it, because a rising tide raises all ships. And I think the more cabbies that get on and do these extra kind of ways of showing themselves on social media, whether it's Instagram, whether it's on TikTok, whatever, I'm not really on those as such. It's out there. We need more of it.
If there was one thing you could change about the London taxi trade, what would that be?
I was kind of thinking about this the other day, and I think what it needs, not necessarily a change, but kind of like an improvement or a step in the right direction, is probably just more kind of integration, more social aspects to it, rather than kind of always looking at each other as individual drivers. I know everyone's got their own expertise of this. Like if you've been a driver for like decades, you're going to have a lot of other drivers that you know of. But then there's some drivers who are just them. They might only know of a couple of other drivers, and that's their own little cab driving world. I think if there was more opportunities to kind of make these social connections, like the cab guiding course was great for that for me. There was like 20 other drivers there and the tutors. And now whenever you see them out and about, you can stop, have a conversation. All of a sudden, it's not a very like lonely or isolated job. You've got all these different connections. So if there was something that helped promoted that, and that's kind of what I wanted to do with this, possibly some sort of a website like the London Taxi Driver Network, or you know, maybe I'm sure what you guys are doing with Cockney Cabbies, where you're sharing Cabby profiles, is encouraging these drivers to kind of get to know one another. I mean, I love it. It's great when people stop and sort of say hello to me and say, "Oh, right, Tom, what are you working on?" Stuff like that. But I want to be able to do that with more drivers. I want to be able to go up to a driver and go, "Oh, you're right, blah, blah, what are you working on?" and have more insights, more hooks into it. It's great that I'm doing it, but there needs to be more drivers doing stuff like that to create that more social.
So to round things up, tell people what your YouTube channel is and how they can get in touch with you, because you do a newsletter as well, don't you? Yeah,
so I'm pretty well optimised. It's just Tom the Taxi Driver on YouTube. Apologies if there's any other Tom the Taxi Drivers out there. I just like the alliteration of it. So if anyone wants to be I don't know, John the Journeyman or Mike the Musher, go ahead, make that. But yeah, it's just Tom the Taxi Driver. I'm mainly on YouTube. And I also, yeah, you mentioned about, I've got an email newsletter, and that's just something I like to put out every week of just what I'm working on. So it might be something I've discovered in London. It might be just projects that I'm working on. It's just another way of keeping in touch with people, really. Should there ever be a problem with YouTube. And yeah, thanks for everyone who kind of watches and does stuff. If anyone wants to send anything to me or has any ideas, or they're thinking about starting something, I'm all ears. I love that, and I will happily promote anyone who wants to do any kind of media of this type.
Thanks, Tom.
Thanks, Shane. Appreciate it.
A very good morning to you. It's another fantastic day in London town.
We are London, past the glorious city of today. Hey, talking of first impressions, what was